wanted to hear more about their culture, and instead I just had to hear a lot about double penetration.
It's time for the 13 Nights of Sarah.
Hey besties, it's Sarah. Today we're gonna be doing something a little scary, and that is reading 3 monster romances. For those of you who don't know, monster romance is a subgenre of romance where humans and monsters copulate, if you will. And typically, there are some anatomical differences. I am nervous, to say the least. I would say that my approach to romance is a little bit vanilla. I love a smutty scene, but I'm really a stickler for like how the sex scenes and how the romance goes about. Like there are a lot of very popular romances that I don't like for various reasons. Like I always hate if the main guy character is really toxic or manipulative or like possessive. I hate that. I know that a lot of people think that's hot or like reading that in books, but I don't like that. Dark romance in general is something that I am unsure about how much I want to explore. I'm a little bit scared of that genre as well. I've only read a couple of those and they were pretty light in comparison to what I've heard about other books in that genre. I also like the sex scenes to be very specific. I don't like a lot of fluids in my sex scenes. So overall, I read a lot of romance, but I rate most things like 3 stars or even under. But it's not very often that I love romance. So as you can see, with all those things being said, monster romance makes me nervous, especially because of my stipulation about fluids, because I just feel like if the heroine is doing something with like a 7-foot monster, there's gonna be a lot of fluid. So the 3 monster romances that I'm going to be reading are Morning, Milk and Glory by C.M. Nascosta. I actually reacted to the cover of this book in the ugly book covers video that I did with Emma from Emma Books, and we did not love that cover, but luckily they've actually changed it, and so the new cover is actually a lot better. What I know about that book is that it is about a milking farm where people go to milk these creatures that need tending to, and milking is exactly what you think it would be. And the original cover really grosses me out because I think I know what that white substance is supposed to be. So I'm very, very nervous to read this because it really goes against my rule about liquids. I feel like I'm gonna be reading about some stuff that grosses me out significantly. So the next book that we're going to be reading is The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert. From my understanding, this book is about a woman who is in an abusive relationship, and to get away from her husband, boyfriend, whoever he is, she signs a deal with a demon, and basically he takes her to another realm where she is getting chosen by someone to like be their bride and like have their baby. Like she has like a 7-year contract to go off into this other realm and like have the baby of a thing. And I think that the guy that chooses her is a dragon man. That one scares me a little bit less. It kind of sounds like he's gonna like have a dragon head and maybe a man's body or something, and maybe there'll be a tail involved, but overall it's gonna be a lot safer than the milking farm, I think. I could be wrong. I will report back. And then the last book that I'm going to read is I Married a Lizard Man by Regine Abel. I feel like this book is probably just what the title is, which is it's about a girl marrying a lizard man. But I went on Goodreads to look at the description because I've actually never seen anyone read this one before. I just looked up like popular monster romance and this came up on a bunch of Goodreads lists. From what I'm seeing what this is about a girl who is from a farming colony. It's giving me kind of like sci-fi vibes. She is turning 25 and she doesn't have any suitors, and she needs someone to like marry so that she can like keep doing her farming or something. So she decides to get an arranged marriage through the Prime Mating Agency, and so she gets paired with a grumpy massive lizard man. That'll be interesting. There's gonna be tales involved in that. I feel like I chose 2 reptilian ones to read for this, and the other one is more of like a bull one. Again, super nervous about the milking farm. These books are so far outside of my comfort zone. Like it's never really like been a priority of mine to read this subgenre, but I feel like it would make good content. Also, obviously monsters are very fitting for spooky season, so we had to do it for the 13 Nights of Sarah. Anyway, let's just get into it. Dragon Tales, it's almost time for Dragon Tales. Okay besties, I have finished The Dragon's Bride and I have thoughts. So the book starts out with our main character, Briar Rose. Her name being Briar Rose makes me feel like this is supposed to be a nod towards Beauty and the Beast, which, haha, monster romance, we get it. Anyway, we start out with her in a hotel room because she is fleeing her abusive husband, and a demon, who I believe his name is like Azazel or Azrael, something demony sounding, he approaches her and he's basically like, hey, if you sign this 7-year contract and come off to this other realm with me and basically get paired up with a monster dude, I will basically kill your husband for you and you can get away from him and like live your good life without him. So she agrees to it because, you know, she's in a pretty bad spot. And so then she's whisked away to this castle where there's sort of like a bidding situation, and this dragon guy bids on her. And so the dragon's guy's name is Soul, and I actually really liked him. So let's get into the things I liked about this. I really thought that the demon deal and the world building of the different realms was like really interesting. I definitely would be interested in reading the stories of the other people who are clearly going to have spin-offs from this. When Briar gets to Soul's kingdom, there is a lot to learn about the dragons, and I found all of that really fascinating. Now here's where this book started to lose me. It's not an exceptionally long book. Like it felt pretty short to me. I don't know how short it actually was, but it felt short. And like I was saying, I was really enjoying the world building and I was enjoying all the characters. But there were so many sex scenes, so many. Like if you want a monster romance that's literally erotica, this is for you. To be honest, even in the sexy scenes in the very beginning, I was very intrigued because when they first started having sex and he goes down on her, they were kind of describing how his jaw was quite large. And so it was like when he would close around her, it was like in between her legs, and then like his top teeth were like on her lower abdomen and his bottom teeth were like over her ass. And the tongue was doing what you'd think it would be doing. But I was kind of like, this is interesting, tell me more. What got old for me is there was just so many sex scenes. Like, how many times can we just fuck with two penises? Like, how many times? It also had a little bit of like a breeding kink going on, because the whole thing with the dragons is that they need to mate with humans to like keep magic in their bloodlines. I don't know, there was just like weird parts, like put a baby in me, and like there was a lot of fluids like I was worried about earlier. You might think it's odd that I'm complaining about there being too much sex in a smutty monster romance book, but I love a good amount of plot. And like I was saying, the fantasy elements were interesting. Like the dragons were cool. Like I wanted to hear more about their culture, and instead I just had to hear a lot about double penetration. I think ultimately I'm going to rate this book 2 stars. It intrigued me initially, like I said. That scene was interesting. But then as we kept going, I was just like, sex cannot sustain me alone. One of the reviews I saw on Goodreads that really made me laugh is someone else gave it 2 stars and they said a star for each cock. Because he had 2 penises. Very funny. Anyway, those are my final thoughts on The Dragon's Bride. I will say I wish I loved this so much more than I did, because I love the cover of this book. Like I wanted to buy it to have on my bookshelf, but I just simply did not enjoy it enough to own it. But the cover is so beautiful.
Bitch, I'm a cow. Bitch, I'm a cow.
So I finished Morning Glory Milking Farm, and I did not love this book, and to be honest, it was because of the monster. As I feared, there was a lot of liquid in this book, a lot of fluids, if you will. So we have our main character, and she just graduated from grad school. She's really down on her luck. She can't find a job. So she sees an ad for a milking farm job, and she's not really sure what that entails, and she soon finds out that her job is going to be jerking off minotaurs. Okay, because of the cover of this book, I went in knowing that this man was going to be very bull-like, but I still in my heart of hearts was hoping that the rest of him would be more humanoid. But as I slowly but surely learned about the minotaurs, it was giving cow, it was giving bull, it was giving farm animal. I really tried to get into that aspect of the story, but it kept really grossing me out, because every time I would start to picture him being mostly human but with like a cow head, they would describe his hooves or his haunches or his tail. At one point, the author described him as being bovine and having a woodsy scent, and I was like, this is a cow. This is actually a cow. We are on a farm. Also, before anyone gets on me about this, I do understand that there's a difference between a bull and a cow, but it's just very funny to say that he's a cow. The romance itself in this book was actually kind of cute at times. I really did enjoy how the 2 characters slowly fell in love, but I think what made it weird is that the reason they were falling in love is because she was giving him a handy on the regular. Like, the author went out of her way to make it not weird, but it still was weird, especially because he literally was a bull. Like, he was an animal, and I could not get over that. It was giving, bitch, I'm a cow. Like Katie Robert doing the whole dragon thing, I was like, okay, dragon, I see it. But the bull, it was just like, I can't. It really feels like this book was for someone who has both a barn animal and cum kink, because there were so many liquids, and there was just so much talk of like when they would have sex, like filling her up and like his creamy milk, I'm sorry if I'm making you ill saying this, but there was just a lot of descriptive words for cum. So far, after reading 2 monster romances, I don't think that I am here for it.
Lizard in a backyard, no problem at all.
Okay, besties, I finished I Married a Lizard Man, and I actually thought it was pretty cute. I think I like this one the best out of all 3. Did I love the fact that he is a lizard man? No, I did not love that. But overall, the story was pretty cute. So this book takes on more of like a sci-fi angle for the monster romance. Our main character is this girl that is from a farming colony, and she is the 3rd daughter, meaning that she doesn't have any sort of inheritance, and there's not very much land left on her like planet that she's from. So she goes to this matchmaking service that specializes in doing interspecies couples, and so that's how she ends up getting put together with this lizard guy. So the big premise of this book is that the clan that the lizard guy is from specializes in hunting, but recently they have not been able to hunt very well, and so they are in a food crisis. And so when the matchmaker puts them together, he basically says like, you can help them learn how to farm. And so the big thing of the book is her trying to get them to want to farm, but it kind of goes against their culture, and they also have a history of slavery in their past where they were forced to farm, and so they just don't really like farming as a concept. And so it was just kind of like really cute. There were definitely a lot of sex scenes, and there were parts that I was like, okay. For example, the lizard man's penis is always like inside his body, and he has to like bring it out for sex. It's a bit weird, I don't know. But I definitely was more okay with this book than I was with the Minotaur. I had a realization. I think what made me okay with the lizard and the dragon and not the Minotaur is the fact that they are not that close to being mammals, and also the premise of the books. So with the first book by Katie Robert, it was a fantasy, and so like dragons don't really exist. And then with the last book being sci-fi, him being a lizard man is more like he's an alien species that happens to resemble a lizard. But with the Minotaur, even though Minotaur is a fantasy creature, his description was very much giving, I am a bull from a farm. There was one line that kind of took me out of it, and it was when she was talking about how when they have sex, the lizard man would make like a weird rattling noise in his throat, and she thought it was creepy at first, but now she thinks it's really sexy. And I was just like, that's giving lizard in a terrarium. Like, I don't love that. Overall, I liked the world building of this book. I felt like the lizard clan had some really interesting customs, and I enjoyed the girl trying to get them to learn how to farm. And I don't often get excited about farming. Like in general, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is an amazing concept, but it was just interesting and very wholesome overall of like how they came together when they didn't have a lot in common, obviously being interspecies as well as like their interests being really different. But yeah, it was just cute. I liked it. Other than that, I don't really have much more to say about it besides that it did not traumatize me quite as much as the Milking book did. Okay, but that brings me to the end of this vlog. I am done reading all these monster romance books, and I gotta say, I don't know if this is gonna be a genre that I read that often. You're gonna have to convince me pretty hard if there is a monster romance book that you think I'd actually like. I think what I'm learning is I need the monsters to be a little bit more humanoid. Like I need more human bits about them, like less animal, more humans, because these books were definitely making me feel like there is a Venn diagram between furries and people who enjoy monster romance. Also, before I go, I do want to give a disclaimer. If you are a monster fucker enthusiast, I love this genre for you. For me, I don't know if I will revisit it again, but I could be convinced. If there are any books you think I might like, please leave them down below in the comments. But I might leave the dragons and the krakens and the slithering and the slathering and the hooves to you guys. I might leave it to you. That's pretty much it for this video, besties. If you've made it to the end and you had a good time, you should leave the cow emoji down below so that I know that you made it to the end. And I just want to say thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.